Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Walters Wanderings Travel Podcast. My name is Scott Walters, and I'm here today with Zane Kerby. He's the president and CEO of ASTA. We'll get into all of what he does in just a second. Just want to remind you that because Walt Disney World is celebrating its 50th celebration, 50th anniversary birthday party, call it what you will, and they're doing that through the end of next year. If you book a 4 day or longer stay at Disney World Resort and get 4 days or more of park tickets, I will send you a $50 Disney gift card. So that's a pretty good deal. And you can do that. You can book anytime between now and October 31st for travel into next year. We'll determine exactly how long into next year that will be. It's more going to be on Disney than on me. So, that said and out of the way, we have with us Zane Kerby. Zane is the president and CEO of ASTA, which is one of the largest groups that helps support and works with travel advisors and other parts of the travel industry to make sure that travel is done in a proper, safe, and hopefully a way that I guess we could say, Zane, is one that's positive for all parties concerned. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Scott, you got our mission almost perfectly there. Our mission is to promote and defend our members at all levels of government within the travel industry itself and to the traveling public. So it's that promotion and defense that ASTA is primarily occupied with.
Well, that's great because obviously we all know before 2020, travel sort of did its own thing and ran its own course, and everything was just fine. And yeah, there were always tweaks and things that you needed to do to help make sure that the government understood, what our role was, either as travel advisors or as people that are industry vendors and places like hotels and tour companies and everything else. But obviously, 2020 changed the whole landscape. And now travel is coming back, but there are still some bumps in the road and some objects being tossed at us that we have to sort of deal with and deal with on the fly and deal with in a constantly changing world. Because right now, the only thing that's consistent is change. We can certainly agree to that. So, what kind of initiatives has ASTA done to make sure that the travel industry is not hurt anymore during the course of this pandemic until the pandemic is officially called off?
Yeah, there are a number of things that ASTA is engaged in. The first is to make sure that our elected officials know that policies that they put in place and those who they've charged with public health, that those policies that both elected and public health officials have put in place have a dramatic impact on the traveling public. They have a dramatic impact on people's willingness to travel or even their understanding of where they can travel to. So we make sure that our elected officials know that, and that that it's their obligation and their moral duty to actually bridge us to that better future. If they're gonna charge the CDC with public health and the CDC is gonna tell people not to travel, well, you broke it, you bought it. The government needs to bridge travel reliant businesses until such time as they can remove those restrictions and let more normal travel patterns emerge. Now, because we're a less visible sector of the travel industry, it's even more important that the nation's 160,000 travel advisors are represented at all levels of government. We spoke with Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada with several of her constituents on this past Tuesday. I was really encouraged, actually, by the empathy that she showed and the understanding she showed of what our members are going through, and how even though some more normal travel patterns are emerging, our members are not going to earn those commissions until people actually take those trips. So any kind of sensitivity that is being re-pushed into the travel ecosystem by our elected officials or those charged with public health has a dramatic impact on travel and our members' ability to recover from this terrible pandemic. So getting aid is the first one. The second priority that we have, Scott, is to make sure that governments around the world understand that we need to treat people who've been vaccinated differently than those who are unvaccinated in terms of travel. Unfortunately, there are still kind of blanket restrictions on that some countries have right now, and you can see that there's no sort of overarching governing body that makes policy for travel. So without that, it's a bilateral sort of conversation and agreement that people have to make and that countries have to make in order to restore important travel ties. So we were really encouraged that we met actually a couple weeks ago with representatives from Europe, the UK, Canada, the Caribbean, to talk, because these are the biggest feeder and outbound markets from the United States. We met as organizations a few weeks ago and said, listen, we need to come up with a statement. We need to come up with a joint statement of solidarity to help the governments, all of our respective governments, understand the challenges that we're facing here as travel advisor businesses. And we came out and said, listen, please treat travelers who are vaccinated differently than those who are unvaccinated. We're really happy that a few days later, the Biden administration said, hey, we're going to welcome vaccinated European tourists starting November 1st. That's a great step. We hope that that's reciprocated. People can go to some countries within Europe, but it's certainly harder than it should be. And so we hope that as those barriers come down, that again, vaccinated travelers are treated given a more free hand than those who are unvaccinated.
No, that all makes sense, and it's sort of a thing that if you're pro-vax or anti-vax, it's kind of a moot point when you're dealing with something as large as an industry as travel is. Only because you sort of have to play by the rules, even though the rules are constantly changing, which is always one of the things that gets my goat. I'll have one update at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I have a new something coming at 3 in the afternoon that contradicts what was on 9 o'clock in the morning. Then I have to tell a client, oh, by the way, things have changed since 9 o'clock this morning, and it's a real pain in the butt, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now,
so there are many audiences there, Scott. Though there are nervous public health officials in countries and cities all around the world, and if you ignore them as a constituent that we have to satisfy, then we're gonna be right back where we were last March and April and May.
No, I understand that.
We have to understand that again, nervous public health officials in countries where the traveling public is dreaming of going, they need to be satisfied that someone is not going to come to their country or city and spread a deadly virus that could decimate the local population and economy. So we do not mandate vaccination. We're not saying you have to be vaccinated in order to travel, but the reality is that most destinations around the world are requiring that in order to travel. So we are all for things that help restore confidence in the travel ecosystem.
No, I understand that. Now, when you say all levels of government, ASTA not only works on the federal level, because I know most of your particular personal focus is obviously on DC, but how would a travel advisor like myself in New York, plug into the more local governments, say the state level, before we even get to the federal level? What would the best course of action be?
Yeah, well, you definitely want to get involved in your local chapter, Scott. And so, if you tell me exactly where you live, I'll get you in touch with your local chapter president. They'll hold monthly or sometimes quarterly meetings where you can meet with other travel advisors right in your location. That's always good to get to rub shoulders with and to learn from and share with people who are in the same boat that you are. But the really interesting part of this, though, when you talk about the work that ASTA does at the state level, is that states are something like $3.5 trillion in debt, trillion with a T. And they don't have they usually have to try at least with it to balance their budget. And so they're constantly scrounging around looking for revenue in every corner. And so you'd be amazed at how sort of lazy politicians are. And they say, hey, why don't we tax travel? Because we're actually taxing out of towners, right? It's a very seductive kind of thing that they do, or is they say, listen, we're gonna tax out of towners by raising the hotel tax. Well, they don't realize that actually the biggest users of hotels are local businesses. The biggest users of car rentals are local businesses. So it's a tax, it's actually much more of a local tax than people imagine. Well, ASTA has, these tax proposals come up almost every year. Sometimes, 10 or 12 or 13 states a year will propose a new tax on travel could be a bed tax, could be a travel services tax. Some of them specifically target travel advisor commissions. So whenever these things come up, and I think ASTA's batted nearly 1,000 in the last 7 or 8 years that I've been here, but we always fight these travel taxes, and we almost always win. So it's really important that we, in the last year and a half, the work has primarily been on a federal level, but the state work that we do keeps the regulatory and tax environment at the state level, somewhat acceptable.
So now let's go back to the federal level. Obviously there are a lot of policies that are, sort of written by nameless, faceless, bureaucrats versus ones that are actually enacted into law and signed by the president. How does ASTA work as far as, talking with the people who make decisions that aren't actually voted on? What kind of interactions do you have with those, and are there any memorable stories that you'd like to share?
Well, we talk with politicians, I would say every working day of the year, and we talk with their staff. So the whole idea, Scott, is to make sure that people understand that although travel advisors don't have offices on every corner, so we're a little less visible in terms of public awareness, there's still, again, 160,000 Americans who sell travel for a living. Some from offices, some from their homes, some from retail locations, and that those people can't be forgotten about when public policy decisions are being made. So again, we spoke with Senator Rosen 2 nights ago, and again, I was really encouraged by her understanding of not only of our business, but of the need for helping a business like ours who are travel reliant until, again, more and more normal travel patterns can emerge. I'll just say that most of the time, whenever, and when decisions come to lawmakers here in Washington, they're not easy decisions. And it's usually, they have to take a position that's for or against something that is being proposed. And almost always a legislator will say, who has been in to see us about this? And what is the level of noise from our constituents about this particular issue? And so if you don't, if you're invisible or if you're silent, then you're not even going to be considered in the decision making, because there are other people who are clamoring about their issues, all the time. That's why it's really important for travel advisors to have a seat at the table, because we're a little less visible than we used to be, but our businesses are more reliant on a functioning, working travel ecosystem than ever before.
Now, what kind of other services does ASTA provide that aren't of a legislative lobbying, put the positive pressure on kind of thing? What could someone expect to receive from ASTA, when they join, besides those obvious seats at the table, as it were, when it comes to the halls of Congress and other legislative bodies?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. The main thing, I think the most fun thing that we do is that we promote your value to the traveling public, to consumers. And, we have staff that all they do all day long is pitch stories about how you saved the day during the pandemic, how you work to make memories magical for people. And those stories get picked up. We've had great wins recently in the Wall Street Journal, on CNN, in the New York Times, Washington Post. These large, sort of meta kind of mega media outlets that really help shape public opinion. We pitch them stories all the time about the good work that you do. And that usually translates into more traffic to ASTA.org and to TravelSense.org. TravelSense.org is ASTA's consumer travel advisor connector. And, tens of thousands of people visit it every month, and they find a travel advisor an ASTA travel advisor member that they can work with, and they can work to, again, plan their vacation or their business travel. So promotion is really important. And I can't think of a time where, because of the complexities of travel that you enumerated earlier in our conversation, how important the travel advisor's role is, and what benefits we can derive from coming out of this pandemic healthy and strong. If we can get there, my goodness, the role of a travel advisor has never been more vital. And ASTA is telling that story every day.
Well, that's very true. And because I can tell you that every day I read at least one cautionary tale on some social media platform from someone who, had some issue or something. And my usual commentary, whether it's in my head or if I, type it and place it for public consumption is, when it comes to an online, portal, you can certainly look at what they have to offer, but you certainly don't get their cell phone number. you
That's
know,
right. That's right.
and trust me, it's brutal, it's tough, and I mean, last year I lost $20,000 in commissions in 5 days, but just because everything just plain and completely shut down, and people, obviously weren't in the mood to reschedule because their whole vacation thing was completely, set asunder, basically, for, no using that kind of language. It just was poof, it was gone, and so they couldn't react in a way that, could deal with it. It's almost like a grieving process when you have, put in, all of your thoughts and energy and time into, setting up a vacation. All of a sudden it goes away. There's a big problem there. So, but now travel is coming back. Let's talk about you, and some of your, memorable vacations. What was the most memorable vacation you took in the United States?
In the United States. Well, first of all, I just want to say, Scott, you're absolutely right. The sort of the automated ways that you can buy travel, they don't have an empathy setting, and that's we are promoting full service bookings. We understand that. We understand that empathy and understanding of clients and working on their behalf and fighting for refunds and rebooking them and working with them and caring for them while on the road. That's what our industry is all about, and we're committed to telling that story. Now, the most memorable vacation I've taken, last year when things were a little shut down, we decided to fly to Phoenix and to auto travel the southwestern United States. We started in Phoenix. We ended in San Francisco 2 weeks later. We drove 2,400 miles. We went up through Utah, saw Bryce and Zion and Arches National Parks. My son ordered the beef Wellington at Hell's Kitchen in Las Vegas. We went up through Sequoia National. Yeah, that was cheeky of him because that was like $60 I didn't have. We went up through Sequoia and Kings Canyon. Yosemite, unfortunately, the forest fires kind of made visibility tough at Yosemite, but then drove over to San Francisco. We had 4 teenagers in the car for 2,400 miles over 2 weeks. That was definitely the most memorable, some ways painful, but it's definitely the most memorable vacation I've had in a while. Other than, and we've traveled throughout the pandemic anywhere we could go. We have gone as a family. We certainly continued traveling, business travel for ASTA. This year so far, I've been to Jamaica with our good friends at Beaches and Sandals. I've been to Croatia, to Turks and Caicos, been to Maui with my wife. So we've traveled throughout the pandemic and certainly know the enriching power of travel.
Well, that's true because, I think the bottom line is, travel is still a constant, and even as stories as cheeky as ordering the beef Wellington at Hell's Kitchen, I'm sure it was good. They didn't have to send it back. So I think there's a lot of charm in doing any kind of travel. Whether you're part of a big group and you're being escorted in a big tour bus, or whether you're going it alone when in a 7-passenger minivan that maybe should have been a 10-passenger minivan for space, or anything else. And whether you're flying to a destination or driving or cruising, it's good to know that there is advocacy, for the travel professionals, and it's good to see that. For the most part, I mean, yeah, there are some times when you don't win, and I'll ask a question about that. But when you do get a victory, it's really sweet. And I think one of the sweetest victories was the fact that even on a limited basis, we could get back to Alaska cruising this year. I think that was a really sweet victory, and I know that ASTA had to play a significant role in making sure that the legislative body there in Washington understood the need, not just for the travel companies, the cruise companies involved, but obviously all the local businesses that were affected. Because in 2019, I went on an Alaska cruise, and I dumped some good coin at those ports, and I took the excursions, and I was able to see a lot of great stuff, and experience one of the best vacations I ever had was going to Seattle for 3 days before, and then going to Alaska. It was really quite nice, and I think those kind of memories are great things to take with you, and it beats the clutter of buying things, which we all know that everyone's bought a bread maker and an Instapot during the pandemic, and those things may not get used so much, after it's all over, but the memories from your travel still will remain. Before we go, we talk about all these legislative victories. What was the biggest loss or the worst loss that you took with ASTA on some policy thing, and what could you have done differently to maybe change some minds?
Yeah, I do want to go back to really quickly, and before I hit the pain, I want to hit the glory, Scott. And your listeners should know that they owe a debt of gratitude to the 150 travel advisors who came to Washington in May of this year and lobbied hard to restore the Alaskan cruise season. And because of that, the very next week, the Congress voted unanimously. Congress can't agree on anything, can't agree on which bubblegum to chew. But they agreed that the Alaska cruise season should be saved, and they temporarily suspended the PBSA, which
Right.
They temporarily suspended the PBSA, which allowed Alaskan cruise ships to get back in the water. So without that effort of 150 travel advisors coming in for ASTA's legislative day and advocating forcefully for that initiative, I don't think it would have happened. So we're really happy that we were able to take a small part in organizing that effort. Now, the biggest miss, I don't know. That's a tough one. But I just wish, I know we keep working desperately to try to get either more generalized relief, like the ERTC credit restored for the fourth quarter, or for the SAVE Act, which would give travel advisors access to the Shuttered Venues program, grant funds that are available. So the fact that hasn't happened, that we haven't gotten dedicated funding for travel advisors, we have been able to get, to help our members to get funding for more broad programs like ERTC and PPP loans and unemployment insurance for our independent contractor members. But we don't have dedicated funding. So if there's there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of clutter here in Washington, just in terms of trying to get your message through. We've done a lot of new things this year. We did a political advertising campaign in March to try to get lawmakers awareness. That's where they look to get their news. We're hosting a first-time exclusive ASTA fundraiser with Senator Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, next Tuesday night, to kind of make sure that as this legislation is being crafted, that that travel advisors are on his mind. So we continue punching and working hard to get as much money for our members as we possibly can.
Well, that's very good. And when it comes to election time, obviously, people tend to vote with their pocketbooks, and travel advisors are in a unique spot because not only do we vote with our own pocketbooks, we're also voting for our clients' pocketbooks too. So, and I know that I don't believe that you necessarily endorse candidates, or do you?
We do not.
So you're just endorsing the industry, and you're hoping that you get the bipartisan cooperation like you did with the Alaska vote.
We look for, so ASTA has a PAC, and we raise funds for our PAC. We hope that all of your listeners will contribute to our ASTA PAC. Now, those are funds that we pool and we give to actual candidates. So not candidates, actual lawmakers. Candidates are one thing, but once a locale has sent their elected representative to Washington, that's the person that votes, and that's the person that we will work with. We usually give ASTA PAC funds and donations to 51% to Republicans or Democrats, whoever's in power, and 49% to the other side of the aisle. We're a completely apolitical organization, but we look for champions on both sides of the aisle who believe in, and we find them on both sides of the aisle, who believe in our cause and who are going to work on behalf of travel advisors. It's worth noting that the SAVE Act, that would give travel advisors access to the Shuttered Venues program, has 30 co-sponsors because of ASTA's work. It had 0 co-sponsors in March of this year. Now it has 30 because of our work. Now we're desperately looking for a brave senator on either side of the aisle to propose a companion bill to the SAVE Act that is, again, has great support in the House, and we hope we can get that done. If we do, we get dedicated funding from government for the travel advisor community. That would be wonderful. But we just continue working to make sure that actual legislators know of the problems, of the challenges that we have, and what they can do to help.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think this has been a very good discussion. And it's not just the inside baseball stuff for my colleagues that are travel advisors. This is good information to have for anyone listening out there, because it's important to know exactly how things work, and part of the deal is when you have to deal with things with policy, with public policy, and with the political figures, you still have to do so with kind of grace, dignity, and a certain kind of shall I say, adroitness, so that you can go ahead and weave your way through. And you can talk to Chuck Schumer on one side, and you can talk to Ted Cruz on the other side, and you get the common ground, and everyone gets happy. And I think this is really commendable, and it's difficult, I'm sure, at times, and at times we all have to bite our tongues when we deal with the politicians of certain stripes, but we sort of smile and nod our heads and shake their hands and do the work that needs to be done. I think that's really the bottom line. I appreciate you being on with me today, Zane, and I look forward to having more conversations in the future regarding ASTA's role in making sure that people can travel and travel safely and travel wherever they want. As the world reopens up, things are going to be changing, and it'll be good to go to those places that we all want to go to and check off the bucket list, no doubt.
Agree 100%. Thanks for having me on, Scott.
All right, I appreciate it. That's Zane Kerby, everyone. He's the president and CEO of ASTA. Don't forget, if you book a trip to Disney World 4 nights or more with 4 days of park tickets between now and the end of October, I will give you a $50 Disney gift card you can use there. You don't even have to buy me anything, so that's the way it goes. So again, thanks to Zane Kerby, and this has been the Walters Wandering Travel Podcast. We will catch you with another edition real soon.